Dust and smoke swallowed the Afghan valley like a living storm. The air cracked with rifle fire, shrapnel, and the desperate echoes of shouted commands. The 2nd Battalion had walked into an ambush. Every direction spat fire, and the only thing louder than the bullets was the screaming of the wounded. Corpsman Elena Vega was already running before anyone called for her. Her pack bounced against her back, heavier than she was, but she didn't slow. A burst of gunfire tore into the dirt beside her. She slid behind a rock, yanked open her med kit, and crawled toward her commander, Captain Harris, who was slumped near the Humvee, blood soaking through his vest. "Stay with me, sir," she shouted, pressing her hand against the wound. His eyes fluttered. He was hit in the shoulder and side, one bullet nicking the artery. Harris gritted his teeth, gripping her wrist. "We're pinned, Vega. You can't. I'm not leaving you," she cut him off, pulling gauze and applying a tourniquet with steady, furious hands. The medic's world shrank to heartbeats, pressure, and blood. Every move had to count. All around, the rest of Alpha Squad was trapped in the ravine. 2 machine guns rained fire from the ridge. Radio chatter broke in static bursts. Someone screamed for air support, but it was miles away. She injected morphine, tightened the bandage, and shouted to a nearby Marine. "I need suppressing fire. Left ridge. Now." Private Dalton nodded, popped up, and fired. Vega dragged Harris behind the Humvee as bullets tore through the metal. "You're gonna make it," she said, voice trembling only for a moment. "Just hold pressure." He tried to speak, but blood filled his mouth. "Vega, take the rifle." Her eyes flicked to the M4 lying by his boot. "I'm not." "Do it," Harris coughed. "You're the only one left moving on this side." Something in his tone silenced her hesitation. Vega had trained for combat, but medics didn't go on the offensive. Still, she looked around. Dalton was down. The gunner was hit. The squad leader was silent on the radio. She picked up Harris' rifle. It felt foreign and familiar all at once, like picking up a piece of history she never asked for. "Cover me," she muttered, not sure to whom. Then she sprinted. The air came alive with gunfire. She dove behind a boulder, reloaded with trembling hands, and sighted the ridge. 2 Taliban gunners lay prone, spraying bullets into the valley. Vega exhaled, steadied her aim, and squeezed the trigger. One dropped. The second turned his barrel toward her. She fired again. He went still. Her heart hammered so hard she thought it might burst. She'd never fired in combat before. But there was no time to think, only to move. She grabbed a smoke grenade, pulled the pin, and threw it downwind, masking the squad's position. Through the haze, she heard a voice on the radio. "Alpha, this is Falcon 2, we're 5 minutes out." 5 minutes might as well have been forever. She dashed back to Harris, slid beside him. "Hold on, sir. Evac's coming." He smiled weakly. "You always hated rifles." "Yeah," she said, reloading again. Starting to get used to them. Then the ridge came alive again. More enemy fighters, silhouettes against the rising smoke. Vega cursed under her breath and radioed the remaining Marines. "This is Vega, I'm taking left flank. Move on my mark." There was silence for a second, then a raspy voice replied, "Copy that, Doc." She moved fast, switching from cover to cover. Every movement precise, desperate, controlled. The medic who once patched wounds now created them, not for glory, but to protect what was left of her team. She reached the ridge, dropped low, and caught 2 insurgents setting up another PKM. Vega steadied her rifle. 2 shots. 2 bodies. Dropped. The world slowed. She heard the rotors before she saw them, Black Hawks sweeping over the ridge. Falcon 2 to ground team, flare mark, now. Vega grabbed a red flare from her kit, fired it into the sky. The helicopters unleashed hell, ripping through enemy positions. The valley lit up like a thunderstorm. By the time the dust settled, the ambush was over. Vega stumbled back toward Harris, her hands shaking. The adrenaline was fading, replaced by exhaustion and a deep, burning grief. A flight medic jumped out of the Black Hawk, helping her lift Harris onto a stretcher. "You the one who held this position?" the flight medic asked, glancing around at the silent battlefield. She didn't answer, just nodded toward Harris. He did. The chopper lifted off, blades roaring. Vega sat inside, blood drying on her hands. Harris' pulse was weak but steady. She closed her eyes, whispering a prayer she'd learned long ago but hadn't spoken in years. 2 weeks later, Camp Leatherneck buzzed with rumors. Someone had seen the after-action report, a single medic holding the valley, eliminating hostiles, saving 8 Marines. Her name was whispered with disbelief and pride. When Harris regained consciousness in the field hospital, the first thing he said to the colonel was, "That medic deserves a medal." But Vega didn't care about medals. She sat outside the tent most nights, writing letters for the families of the men they lost. One evening, a convoy pulled up. The battalion commander stepped out, holding a folded flag and a silver case. "Corpsman Vega," he said, his voice carrying through the quiet camp. "By order of the President, for extraordinary valor under fire, you are hereby awarded the Silver Star." The squad gathered around her. Harris, still pale and bandaged, saluted from his wheelchair. She stood stiffly, her uniform patched with dust and bloodstains that wouldn't wash out. The medal gleamed in the desert sun, but her eyes stayed fixed on the horizon, the same ridge she'd fought on. After the ceremony, Harris wheeled beside her. "You know they're calling you something out there," he said, smiling faintly. "Yeah," she asked. "What?" He chuckled. "Legend." She shook her head, looking down at the medal. "Legends don't bleed this much, sir." "Maybe not," he said. "But they make damn sure the rest of us get home." Months later, her story spread across bases and classrooms, the medic who picked up her commander's rifle and changed the tide of a battle. Soldiers quoted her calm radio call. Instructors replayed drone footage of her movement through the valley. And somewhere, in a dusty Afghan village, the echo of her defiance still lingered, a reminder that courage isn't born from strength, but from love. Elena Vega returned home quietly, avoiding cameras and interviews. She volunteered at a VA hospital, patching up veterans just as she'd always done. But every so often, a young Marine would recognize her name on the ID badge, eyes widening. "You're that Vega?" they'd ask. She'd smile softly and shake her head. "No," she'd say, "I was just the medic." And yet, behind that humble denial, the legend lived on, not in medals or news reports, but in every soldier who learned that heroes don't always carry rifles. Sometimes, they pick them up only when there's no one else left to fight.